The parking lot was almost empty. It was just after 4 in the morning in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. December air sat heavy over Westdale Mall. The stores were dark, the holiday lights were off, and in the northeast section of the lot, police found a 1972 Buick Electra sitting alone. Inside was 18-year-old Michelle Martinko. Only a few hours earlier, Michelle had been alive. She had gone to a school banquet. She had driven to the mall to buy a winter coat. She was supposed to come home, but she never did. The car became the center of a mystery that would haunt Cedar Rapids for decades. There was no clear motive, no immediate arrest, no confession. Just a young woman, a quiet parking lot, and a trace of evidence that nobody could fully understand yet. For almost 40 years, investigators kept coming back to that Buick. The answer was there. But in 1979, the science was not ready. Michelle Martinko was a senior at Kennedy High School. She was 18 years old, close to graduation, and living in the ordinary rhythm of late 1970s suburban America. School events, friends, family, shopping trips, plans that stretched beyond winter break. On the night of December 19th, 1979, Michelle attended a school banquet for her choir. It was the kind of event that should have become a small memory, a formal night, a dress, a drive home, nothing more. After the banquet, Michelle did not go straight home. She drove her family's Buick Electra to Westdale Mall. It was the holiday season, and the mall was the center of local life. Bright store windows, crowded walkways, Christmas shopping, teenagers meeting friends after school events. Michelle was there for a winter coat. By itself, nothing about that choice seemed dangerous. A young woman driving to the mall, a normal errand, a normal night. But somewhere between the lights inside the mall and the dark parking lot outside, the ordinary world changed. Investigators later built Michelle's final known hours from witness statements, records, and the timeline around the mall. At around 6:30 p.m., she drove to Westdale Mall in the family Buick. She had left the school banquet and planned to purchase a new winter coat. Inside the mall, she was seen by people who knew her. She moved through the stores the way anyone might during the holiday rush. Nothing clearly showed she was in danger. Nothing pointed to the person who would soon end her life. At some point that night, Michelle walked back out into the parking lot. That is where the case becomes quiet. There is no confirmed recording of the moment she reached the car. No clear witness who saw the attack begin. No safe way to say exactly who approached first or how the person got close enough to her. What police would later know was this: Michelle made it to the Buick. The attack happened in or around that car, and the person responsible left behind biological evidence. At the time, that evidence did not have a name attached to it. It was only a trace, and for years, that trace would wait. When Michelle did not return home, her parents became worried. Around 2 in the morning, they reported her missing to police. By then, the mall was closed. The crowds were gone. The music, the registers, the voices from the stores, all of it had disappeared into silence. Around 4 in the morning, officers found the Buick in the northeast area of the Westdale Mall parking lot. Michelle was inside. The scene raised questions that would follow the case for decades. Her car was still there. The night had ended in a public place. The attack appeared sudden, violent, and personal to investigators. But that impression did not give them a suspect. There was no simple answer. In a case like this, investigators often start with the people closest to the victim. Friends, acquaintances, anyone who might have crossed paths with her that night. But leads faded. Tips came in. Names were checked. The case remained open. Michelle's family waited. Cedar Rapids remembered. And the Buick became more than a car. It became a frozen moment from 1979. The investigation did not stop after the first days, but time made everything harder. Witness memories weakened. People moved away. The mall changed. Technology changed. Detectives changed. What stayed the same was the evidence. For years, the case sat in the painful space between suspicion and proof. There were theories, there were tips, there were possible suspects, but nothing held. Then, in 2006, investigators announced a new development. DNA evidence had been found and developed from the case. That profile was entered into CODIS, the National DNA Database. But there was no match. It was a breakthrough that led to another wall. The evidence could say one thing clearly. Someone had left biological material connected to the crime scene. But if that person was not already in the database, CODIS could not give police a name. More years passed. Then forensic science moved again. In 2017, investigators worked with Parabon Nanolabs, a company that used DNA phenotyping to create a possible image of what the unknown person might look like. The image was released to the public. Tips came in again. Still, the answer did not arrive through a single phone call. It came through a family tree. By 2018, investigators used genetic genealogy to narrow the DNA profile to a family line. The search led them toward 3 brothers. Their names were Donald Burns, Kenneth Burns, and Jerry Burns. Police needed a direct sample. They began watching. At a Pizza Ranch restaurant in Manchester, Iowa, investigators collected a discarded drinking straw after Jerry Lynn Burns used it and left it behind. When the straw was tested, the DNA matched the profile connected to Michelle's case. Nearly 39 years after the murder, police had a name. On December 19, 2018, exactly 39 years after Michelle's final night, investigators interviewed Jerry Lynn Burns. Burns was a businessman from Manchester, Iowa. He had not been publicly known as a suspect for decades. He denied involvement. But investigators believed the DNA told a different story. He was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. At trial, the prosecution focused on the DNA. They argued that the evidence linked Burns to Michelle's car and to the attack. The defense challenged the investigation, questioned the handling of evidence, and argued against the way police collected and used Burns' discarded straw. The jury heard the case in 2020. After decades without an arrest, Jerry Lynn Burns was found guilty of first-degree murder. He was later sentenced to life in prison. But even after the conviction, not every question had an answer. Why Michelle? Did she know the man who attacked her? Did he follow her? Did they cross paths by chance? Was the attack planned, or did it happen in a sudden moment in the parking lot? The trial answered who the jury believed was responsible. It did not fully explain why. Burns appealed his conviction. In 2023, the Iowa Supreme Court upheld it, including the use of DNA from the discarded straw. In 2026, he filed another appeal, and the state asked the court to reject it. Legally, the case is solved. Emotionally, it still has shadows. What makes Michelle Martinko's case so haunting is not only the crime, it is the silence that followed. For almost 40 years, a family lived without a final answer. A city carried a story from one generation to the next. A mall parking lot became a place people remembered not for shopping, but for a car that should not have been there. And through all those years, the smallest piece of evidence waited. In 1979, it could not speak. In 2006, It had a profile, but no name. In 2017, it became an image. In 2018, it became a family tree. Then it became a straw left behind in a restaurant. That is how a cold case finally moved, not through a dramatic confession, not through a witness who stepped forward after decades, but through science, patience, and one trace that survived long enough to be understood. Michelle left the banquet that night expecting to come home. Instead, her story became one of Iowa's most remembered cold cases, and the car in the mall parking lot became a reminder that some answers do not disappear. They wait, sometimes for 39 years, sometimes in a file box, sometimes in a lab, sometimes on the smallest thing a person leaves behind.